The Denver Broncos dropped to 1-5 on the season after a disappointing loss on Thursday Night Football. The offense couldn't get anything going, and now change could be coming very quickly here for this Broncos team. So, Broncos country, pour yourself a cup of coffee and join me for this morning's episode of Good Morning Broncos. Good morning, Broncos country. Welcome to another episode of Good Morning Broncos, your daily Broncos conversation and a morning cup of coffee every single day on Mile High Sports YouTube page, 9 o'clock a.m. Mountain Time on the dot here on MHS's YouTube page. Do us a favor, hit that subscribe button so you never miss out on what's going on with Colorado sports, every team, every day here at MHS. And unfortunately, Broncos country, once again, we are bringing you a post-game loss analysis. And this has been the trend here for the last 7 to 8 years for the Denver Broncos. Unfortunately, winning is hard. Winning is very, very difficult. And for some reason, you look around and you watch other teams around the NFL and you see how things are going for them. And even some of the bad teams in the NFL are mildly competitive and, at least can move the ball downfield on offense at times. And the defense comes up with plays from time to time. The Broncos just are so one-dimensional on a week-to-week basis. And it's become frustrating for a lot of Broncos fans. No, look, you guys all know this. I get a lot of interaction from Broncos country. And look, this is a fan base I think is tired. I think that they're no longer optimistic until change happens, and rightfully so. I think that the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over and over again and expecting a different result. Unfortunately for the Denver Broncos, they've been losing for the last 8 years. This will be the 8th losing season in a row for this team since winning Super Bowl 50. And look, that's just a tough pill to swallow here because this is a franchise. When you look at the Denver Broncos, you think of the Denver Broncos, they're a historic franchise. The amount of Super Bowl appearances that they had, the standard that they had under Pat Bowlen when he was in control of the team. And, everything's just kind of been on a downhill spiral a little bit here for this Broncos team. And I'm just not sure what the answer is for them at this point because, look, you got a young roster that has been assembled. And unfortunately, there's just 1 week where the offense is playing well and the defense is struggling. This week against the Kansas City Chiefs, what we saw last night on Thursday Night Football, the Broncos defense, they were playing better than they have been, bend but not break kind of mentality, holding the Chiefs to only one total touchdown on the evening. If you would have told me that Denver would have held the Chiefs offense and Patrick Mahomes to one touchdown on the evening and that they would still lose this game, I'd be like, no, you're crazy. But that was the reality of the situation here because the Broncos could not score until late in that game to make it interesting. And look, hats off to Cortland Sutton. What a fantastic catch that he had there. But Denver's offense was just, it was abysmal. The play calling wasn't great, and the overall execution wasn't great. Look, the Broncos got the run game going consistently in this game, and then at times they tried to pass it, and it would lead to a negative play. I mean, on Denver's first drive, they were marching downfield. Good combination of runs between Jaleel McLaughlin and Javonte Williams, and then it's a 4th and 3, call a timeout, and then you try to get a pass play in, extra protection against George Karlaftis and Chris Jones, and Russell Wilson gets sacked on 4th and 3. It's just you take one step forward with this team, and the team, some other areas take 2 steps backwards. Special teams didn't have the greatest night here for Denver either on Thursday Night Football. So just a lot of stuff that kind of accumulated in there. And obviously coming into this game, the Broncos were the worst rushing defense in the NFL. They held the Chiefs to a total of 96 yards. Isaiah Pacheco, we all know, is a very impactful runner. He had 16 carries for 62 yards. Patrick Mahomes, as we talked about, the second leading rusher going into this game, has the ability to scramble. And, of course, on a couple of plays, he did just that. He had a 15-yard scramble on a 3rd down play. But overall, Denver's defense, for the most part, look, they gave up some chunk yardage. They gave up some passing plays in zone and man, and Mahomes had a very efficient outing, 30 of 40 passing, 306 yards. He had 1 touchdown, but Patrick Mahomes didn't play great, and the Chiefs were just kind of messing around in this game. They were trying hook and ladders. They were doing all these different unique play calls, like trying to go for a fake field goal where they're going to bring Tommy Townsend in to get under center for a tush push at the 2-yard line, and they didn't get it. I mean, they tried to be a little fancy here, but you know what? I did like Denver's defense's response in this game, coming off of a short week, a disappointing performance against the New York Jets last weekend, and they just came out and the defense played with heart and they played with fire. And look, was it pretty at times? No. Was it perfect? No. But you know what? It was a promising development in this game that we saw against Patrick Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs. Now, look, Travis Kelce's always going to get his. Nobody has an answer for him. The Broncos certainly didn't, because when they played zone coverage, he did a great job. And this is what I think makes Travis Kelce very, very unique. if you're playing man coverage, he knows how to beat your leverage. If you're a defensive back or a safety or a linebacker, whatever, whoever's covering you, he knows how to take advantage of his size. He can box you out because of his size there. He also knows how to create separation. He's a great route runner. And then in zone coverage, he just knows, okay, pre-snap. I mean, they're so good at identifying it. And Denver's been running a lot of cover three the last few weeks. They've run it, I think in this season, they've ran it probably a majority, 37% of the time, which when you talk about all the different coverages, that's their highest coverage ran here so far this NFL season. He understands where the soft spots in zone are. That's exactly what he and Patrick Mahomes did. And for the most part, look, I think that Denver's outside linebackers, Jonathan Cooper, Nick Benito, I thought these guys did actually a terrific job all night of kind of bowing the pocket around Patrick Mahomes so he just couldn't scramble, because there's times where he would just get outside. We've seen him do it all the time, for the Chiefs. If you ever watch the Chiefs play, he'll get outside and then he'll run right up the sideline there. I thought they did a really good job of mitigating that, but Denver's interior push still has not been able to get home. I mean, Denver's losing those interior trench battles. And look, Mike Purcell is probably the Broncos' best interior defensive lineman. He had a pretty solid night for them, stepping in for DJ Jones, who missed this game with a knee injury. But you need stuff from Jonathan Harris. And look, Zach Allen came up with a sack late in that game, and Denver's defense made things very interesting. Denver's defense had some momentum in this game. Unfortunately, it didn't matter because the Kansas City Chiefs are the one team, and I said this on Twitter, the Kansas City Chiefs are the one team that can F around and never find out. It's to me, it's really baffling to see what they do, but they're able to pull it out when they need to. And I think that's the mark of a good team. And unfortunately, that's why they're 5-1. That's why the Denver Broncos are 1-5. Denver's just not a very good football team right now. And I don't know what they're going to do, how they're going to get there, because look, there's even flaws with Sean Payton. Sean Payton was hired to turn this thing around, and he struggled with play calling. He acknowledged that after the game. He struggled with timeout usage. He acknowledged that after the game. But what we're seeing with Denver's offense, and the thing that just baffles me to a point I just don't understand, is just the balance, right? And obviously, if you look at the stat box, you're going to see Russell Wilson, 13 of 22, 95 yards, 1 touchdown, 2 interceptions. One of the interceptions was really bad. That was on him, and that was one that was thrown in the first quarter or second quarter to Nick Bolton. There was a 2-man route concept. Jerry Jeudy was the number 2 guy inside the slot. Cortland Sutton was on the outside, ran vertical. And then you had Jerry Jeudy, who ran kind of vertical and was supposed to do a sit route there. And Russ, had the right intentions. I think maybe was late on throwing it when you look at the replay. But Nick Bolton, instead of keying the back, he read Russell Wilson because Russ was reading Jerry Jeudy the entire way. He dropped up underneath, intercepted it. That was on him. The second interception of the night, not necessarily on Russell Wilson. It was tipped at the line of scrimmage, batted up high in the air, and it was intercepted by the Chiefs defense here. But here's the thing that baffles me about the Sean Payton offense and what's going on right now here in Denver. And it's going to make Russell Wilson look bad. And like Sean Payton even said after the game, the passing game has to be better. But here's the thing. Sean Payton isn't doing any favors to help out a guy like Russell Wilson, right? Because your wide receivers aren't getting separation. Denver was having issues on the offensive line stopping Chris Jones and George Karlaftis. Those guys were generating pressure. Plus, you'd get the occasional safety blitz from Justin Reed. And all of a sudden, you're asking Russell Wilson to navigate and maneuver. And there were several times he should have been sacked. He escaped out of it and tried to create opportunity, made a couple of plays downfield. But the reality of the situation here for Denver is the offensive line, golly, man, at left tackle, at right tackle, Garrett Bowles and Mike McGlinchey are turnstiles, or they were at least in Thursday Night Football. You're giving up pressure on the outside. You're giving up pressure on the inside when Chris Jones moves in. What is a guy like Russell Wilson supposed to do? What is any quarterback supposed to do in that matter? Patrick Mahomes was under center for Denver. He would experience the same issues last night that we saw Russell Wilson experience there because you had nothing. And not to mention, so because those guys were so disruptive, Sean Payton went extra protection. I don't know if you saw it, but Quinn Bailey, they added an extra offensive lineman alongside 12 personnel, 2 tight end sets there. They added extra guys there. So you know what they did? When you add extra protection, you take away the number of available routes that you can run, right? You saw a lot of 1- and 2-man routes in certain situations out of those max protect situations where Denver's trying to go play action. To me, it just didn't make any sense to put Russell Wilson or in the offense in that kind of situation. Because when you do that extra protection stuff and you take away the available route runners, now you're asking 2 guys, maybe 3 guys at max to try to go against zone coverage, right? And that's where I think the Kansas City Chiefs excel. They play a lot of cover 2 and cover 4. That's where these guys excelled, is because you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 guys who can cover, 2 guys running routes. Like, that doesn't make sense to me that you do that. And that was the identity for this Broncos offense last night. This is what we consistently saw from them. And once again, just Marvin Mims, we're not seeing Sean Payton utilize Marvin Mims even more. Now, with all the trade rumors going on surrounding potentially Cortland Sutton and Jerry Jeudy, you would think this is a time to ramp things up for a guy like Marvin Mims. Instead, you got Marvin Mims, you got Brandon Johnson, but Denver's snap usage for these guys is just not working. It's not efficient. There is no rhyme or reason to what we're seeing here from Sean Payton and the offense, at least in the last 2 weeks here for the Broncos. So to me, that's very disappointing to see that. Obviously, for Denver, turnovers, they're going to haunt you. 2 interceptions. At the end of the game, Samaje Perine fumbled the ball, went right off of his knee and right at the hands of Willie Gay, who scooped it up and recovered it. And then the Chiefs would just go on to kneel it out there. But Denver, in my opinion, I don't know what the fix is here because Denver's got, they're locked in long term to Mike McGlinchey. They're locked in, a little bit right now. Ben Powers, I think, is probably the one guy that they've signed this offseason. Is actually playing pretty well on the offensive line. You haven't seen anything bad. You haven't seen any sacks surrender there from the interior left guard spot. He's been pretty solid there for the Broncos. And the Mike McGlinchey signing, he struggled against George Karlaftis. He struggled against Chris Jones. And look, anybody's going to struggle against Chris Jones. But the thing is you can't have these issues and how you have a long-term, kind of peg right there at the right tackle position. You paid a lot of money. And I don't know, is it scheme? Will Mike McGlinchey play better at right tackle if you change the offensive scheme going into next season? I'm not sure. I don't have the answers for that. But obviously when Denver's putting extra tight ends over there, that's not helping either because those extra tight ends aren't effective as blockers either in terms of maybe getting leverage. You're seeing guys shoot through them and create opportunities to get free reign on obviously Russell Wilson. So look, as much as people want to dog on Russell Wilson, yes, he didn't play good, folks. I think we can all acknowledge that. But to say it's all on Russ in this game is absolutely asinine here. Russ was the one guy who was competing his tail off last night. Jaleel McLaughlin, Javonte Williams. I felt like those guys were really competing there. And look, Samaje Perine didn't have a single carry. That was, to me, I think in the rushing game here, maybe we're seeing a transition with Javonte Williams. Samaje Perine really is that 1-2 punch here for Denver. Jaleel McLaughlin had 7 carries for 30 yards. Javonte Williams in his return had 10 carries for 52. Russ had 4 for 31. Like there were times where everything was breaking down around Russ, pressure left and right. And it's like, you know what? He used his legs to go fight and will his way for a first down. This is a guy who didn't slide. Like this is a guy who's diving to get first down. So, we talk about guys playing with heart. Russell Wilson did just that. Didn't have the greatest night from a statistical output, but it's not all entirely on Russell Wilson. I don't know what people want Russ to do when there's 2 or 3 man route combinations and nobody's open. You just want him to just throw it, just chuck it down there and hope that, it doesn't get intercepted. At times you got to make decisions, either throw it away or you're going to tuck and run. And he chose to tuck and run. And there are times he chose to throw it away. He made the right decisions on a good portion of those, minus the Nick Bolton interception that he threw there. But Denver is just in dire straits right now. And look, there's change coming here. Obviously, Frank Clark, we all know, did not play on Thursday Night Football. He could be released or traded as soon as today or going into next week. That's something I think that Broncos fans should monitor here. I'm not sure what they're going to do there. They can't find a trade partner. They're going to more than likely release him. And Baron Browning should be back next week against the Green Bay Packers. And Ronnie Perkins stepped up a little bit here for the Broncos defense behind Nick Bonito and Jonathan Cooper. Other guys there we're talking about, Jerry Jeudy. I mean, we all saw the pregame spat that he had with Steve Smith. And look, I think maybe there's a balance here, right? And I love Mark Schlereth as well. And Mark Schlereth has been hitting him pretty hard on social media. And I think there's some valid criticisms, about Jerry Jeudy's game and effort and things like that. But the reality is like, okay, Mark, I love you, my man. I get it. He came after you. He kept tweeting. Look, just leave it be. Like, there's no need to continue to go and attack him and just cause more drama. Like, it's just unnecessary. But the drama did continue here. And I think this is where Jerry Jeudy just going to have to like turn everything out, like tune it out and don't put yourself out there like that because it's just not a great look. Steve Smith, who is obviously we all know one of the best wide receivers to play the game, just a guy who has, epitomizes the dog mentality, right? And I think Steve Smith has got enough skin in the game where he can go out here and he can talk about, what receivers are standing out, what receivers aren't. And, he did say on the NFL Network pregame show that on his podcast, one thing he did was, he was pretty harsh on Jerry Jeudy. And he said, kind of called him just a guy, a jag, just a guy there. And Steve, before the game, and this is what he said on air, he went up, he tried to go up to Jerry Jeudy and tried to apologize. And Jerry Jeudy, said some things, can't repeat here on air. And then Steve Smith after that, it just went kind of off. And he's like, you know what? I'm sorry that I called you just a guy and that you're just an average receiver, that you're tier 3. Like, he said something along those lines here. So, like I said, we're seeing a lot of media people, guys who used to be players this season in particular, going on their platforms and being very harsh and bashing players. Look, even if it's true, as an analyst, you don't do those things. You never make it personal in your analysis and what you're talking about on a player. And unfortunately, Steve Smith, like I said, yeah, Steve Smith's the type of guy, like, he tried to apologize. Jerry rejected it. And so Steve's like, all right, well, you know what? I tried. And, can't fault Steve for that. But, and Jerry goes on to catch three passes for 14 yards. And just, Denver is not in a very good state right now. There needs to be a little bit of an overhaul and a change, because what they've been doing has not been working for years. And I think fans are now fully on board for a rebuild. Look, I got a lot of Broncos fans like, thank goodness the Nuggets season. Look, I'm a diehard Denver Nuggets fan. I'm not a Broncos fan. I cover the Broncos. I cover the NFL. It's my job. I love football. I love the NFL. I love watching every game. But I'm also excited for the Denver Nuggets season as well, because I'm a diehard Nuggets fan there. But just Denver, where they're at right now, it's unfortunate. They have some talented players, and it's like, how long are some of these talented players going to be here? Like, I mean, you look at Patrick Surtain, fantastic talent, fantastic cornerback. Is he going to want to sign an extension when it's time? When the time comes to be able to stay here in Denver? Probably not, right? Who wants to be part of a losing franchise? Who wants to be part of a losing team, a team that doesn't seem like they have any direction right now? That, I think, is the ultimate fear that many Broncos fans have, and rightfully so. It's a valid one there, and we'll see where Denver's at. And, unfortunately, they lost tight end Greg Dulcich once again in his game last night to a hamstring injury, same one that he had just come back from. Stinks for him, man, because Greg's a guy who's just so athletic and so talented and explosive. And when you go through these injuries, things like that, or for in his case, it's the same hamstring. What, this is like the 4th time on the same hamstring. That's just brutal. I mean, it's tough. I feel for the guy. It's not his fault. And I know a lot of fans get pissed at players for getting hurt, but if it were up to the players, they'd never get hurt, folks. It's just the unfortunate nature of the game. And I hope Greg Dulcich can work his way back. Just an unfortunate situation. Stinks for him. He's been putting in so much work. I've been watching him over on the side field and his build up toward his return. It's just unfortunate. I mean, I think that's the only word I can say for it right now. But Broncos country, at least you get to watch Sunday football this week without the misery of, is the team going to lose again? Enjoy football. Enjoy it for what it is. We'll be back next week for another episode of Good Morning Broncos. We'll see what type of change in the air. In the meantime, go pour yourself another cup of coffee and enjoy the rest of your day. I'm Cody Roark, Broncos reporter for Mile High Sports. We'll catch you next time.